Okay, this case was submitted to evaluate a full upper arch plan. Um, Unfortunately, I don't have a lot of information in terms of what the final prosthetic is. Is it going to be a fixed bridge? Is it going to be a overdenture with the bar? Is it going to be a hybrid screw retained restoration? But I thought it would be a good opportunity to go over a few specific items based on what was sent. Um, the first thing I do want to go over is the volume itself. This looks like it was taken with an XG3D, which is an 8 by 8 by 8 3D volume. So my first comment to this would be is that we're missing all of the maxillary sinus. We don't really see anything other than right here. While in this case that may not be important, if we were to look at having to do sinus lifts or angulated implants using the traditional all-on-4 technique, visualizing that sinus may be important. So one of the things that is necessary when using a smaller volume such as the XG3D is to position the patient properly. Position the patient so that we miss this part of the jaw right here, and this 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 millimeters here is added up here into the sinus area. So that would be number one, of great help. Number two, this type of complex case and complex planning requires a more ideal surgical radiographic template. And by that, I mean something that would have teeth in there so that we can verify the final position of the teeth, make some measurements. For example, depending on the restoration will depend on how much space that we need from implant head to the incisal edge. Based on the data that we see here, there's no way to determine where the incisal edge or the planned incisal edge is going to be. So those would be my two main comments in terms of being able to properly plan this particular case. So based on the data that's presented, there's no way for us to be able to do a proper plan on this case. So I would like to see, one, a better volume placement, and two, would like to see some teeth in this scan instead of these metal rods of some sort. I'm not certain what they are. They don't provide me the position of the final teeth. So let's go ahead and take a look based on what is presented. Let's at least evaluate the implant plans. So it looks like these are planned for implant direct reactive implants, which is a Zimmer connection with a legacy or it's just a Zimmer connection on their reactive implant from Implant Direct, slightly more aggressive thread. So based on this plan right here, my only uh, comment would be that this implant is sticking out right here just a bit. And what I would like to do in an ideal world is probably go ahead and bury that a little bit. At the time of surgery, go ahead and flatten this out to create a more nice ridge profile, also to prevent any implant showing, and especially given that based on the data that we have here, we have the plan. Again, now this could change based on where these final teeth are actually going to be. We may actually end up tilting like that. It really just depends on where these final teeth are going to be, and I have no way of knowing that that is the proper position. Then if we go ahead and take a look at this next implant, again, it is planned very nicely, it's well centered. Again, in comparison to this tooth, we don't have the correct angle, we don't know the angulation. But again, I would personally drop this implant just a little bit, do a little bone reduction at the time of surgery, maybe even flatten this bone from here to here out so we can get a more even contour all the way around. And then as we go here to the anterior, my first thought on this particular implant is that our buccal wall is quite thin right here. There's a high likelihood of dehiscence or future failure with leaving such a thin wall here. I don't know if the plan is to flap this case or not flap it. If we were doing this flapless, even then it would still be tight. But certainly if we were to lay a flap, the literature is pretty clear that laying the flap will cause 0.5 millimeter, 1 millimeter of cortical plate bone loss. So we have to accommodate for that in our plan. So my guess would be to move this implant a little bit deeper and to go ahead and angulate this implant to create the space that I need for the buccal wall here. Now, again, depending on the definitive prosthesis, where this implant comes, we could consider using a angled multi-unit abutment to redirect the prosthetic portion of the implant. Now, when we move on to the next implant, let me take a look at one more thing here. As we go in 360, it looks okay. If we go to the next implant, uh, again, I would probably drop this implant a little bit deeper, plan on doing a little bit of bone reduction here. I would maybe even tilt that a little bit, but the bigger concern I have with this implant is that as it's planned, it is quite close, or if not invading, the incisive foramen there. So this implant would need to be moved over to create space. More than likely, based on knowledge, it needs to be like that. And now we have a space where the bone is quite thin and we don't have enough space to accommodate this implant. This area may require grafting, may require a longer implant to gain stability. Again, with the loss of the volume here, we don't know what's going on right here, so we would be unsafe in doing so. So we go back to a 13, and still this looks like it's going to need some grafting throughout that implant, which may create some stress on stability. Yeah, that's just too tight. I would reconsider this site for my implant placement. And the good news, if we're doing a fixed hybrid, we can redirect that site. If we go to the next site, same thing here. I would go ahead and drop this so that all of it gets in bone. And one of the nice things about using implants that have multi-unit abutments, which unfortunately I'm not familiar with this particular implant, prosthetically, we could redirect the implant to get the implant into the bone and then use multi-unit abutments to bring that back into the restorative prosthesis. And then here, same thing, I would probably drop this a little bit. Bone-wise, this looks pretty adequate there, just avoiding the sinus there. So, that's an option. I'm concerned about how close these implants are, but we definitely need to get an implant somewhere more anteriorly. So I may consider moving that implant forward, but we can see here that there's a significant bone defect right there, so move that implant back. So again, without a better scan, some more volume, and certainly without a better prosthetic scanning appliance in the volume, it'll be difficult to make a final recommendation here. Thank you for submitting the case, and I hope you found this helpful.